In the beginning, when the earth was young and the skies were close enough for palm trees to whisper secrets to the clouds, there lived a spider unlike any other, Anansi, the small but clever weaver of webs and words. Anansi was not strong like the leopard, nor swift like the antelope. He could not fly like the hornbill or roar like the lion. But he had something none of them possessed, a mind as sharp as a blade and a tongue as smooth as palm oil. He lived in a quiet village near the great forest, where the nights were long, and the people loved to gather around fires to tell stories. But in those days, stories did not belong to mankind. The power of storytelling was held by the sky god, Niam, whose golden palace floated above the clouds, guarded by winds and thunder. No story could be told on earth without Niam's blessing. The people's nights were empty, their hearts thirsty for tales. So, they sang songs instead, waiting for the day stories would descend from the heavens. One evening, as the sun melted into red gold and the crickets began their evening songs, Anansi climbed onto a rock in the village square. He twitched his legs and cleared his tiny throat. "Listen, my friends," he cried. "I am Anansi the wise, the great weaver, the thinker of thoughts, the speaker of dreams. And I say this, I will go to the sky god himself and bring the stories of the heavens down to earth." The animals nearby gasped. The tortoise paused mid-step. The parrot squawked in disbelief. Even the wind seemed to hush. The elephant, grey and enormous, laughed so hard that the ground trembled. "You," he said, lifting his trunk. "You, the tiny spider, will climb to the heavens. You can't even climb the iroko tree without falling halfway." Laughter echoed through the clearing. But Anansi was not moved. His 8 legs trembled slightly, but his voice grew firm. "Mock me if you will," he said. "For I may be small, but I am not foolish. The sky god loves wit more than size. I will win his stories and bring them to our people. You'll see." The laughter faded, replaced by murmurs of curiosity. Even the proud lion tilted his head, intrigued by the spider's boldness. That night, as the moon climbed over the forest, Anansi began to weave a great web, one that stretched higher than any tree, glimmering in the moonlight like silver threads of destiny. The journey to the sky god's palace was long and perilous. The clouds were thick and jealous, they tried to pull him down with storms. The wind roared, "Go back, little spider. This is not your place." But Anansi laughed, gripping the threads of his web. "I am the child of the earth, but my dreams belong to the sky." He climbed higher, higher, until the stars seemed close enough to touch. When he reached the gate of the sky kingdom, 2 mighty guards stood watch, one made of flame, the other of stone. Their voices thundered. "Who dares approach the palace of Niam, keeper of the heavens?" "It is I," said Anansi boldly, though his heart raced. "Anansi the spider, son of the soil, seeker of stories. I come to speak with the sky god himself." The guards looked at one another. Never before had a creature so small spoken with such courage. They parted, and the golden gate swung open with a sound like distant thunder. Inside, the palace glittered with light. Walls of cloud shimmered like silk. Drums of thunder rolled gently in the background, keeping rhythm with the heartbeat of the heavens. At the center, seated upon a throne of lightning and gold, was Niam, the sky god, tall, radiant, and wise. His eyes held the sun itself. Around him danced spirits of rain and light, whispering the stories of creation. Niam leaned forward, his voice deep as thunder yet calm as dawn. "Anansi," he said. "I know your name. You are the trickster who boasts louder than the lion and thinks faster than the hare. What brings you to my court?" Anansi bowed low. "Great Niam, ruler of clouds and keeper of tales, I come on behalf of the people of the earth. We hunger for stories, the kind that warm the heart and teach the soul. Grant us your stories, so that we may pass wisdom from one generation to another." The sky god's laughter roared across the sky like distant rain. "You, a mere spider. You wish to own my stories, which even the mighty spirits dare not request. Anansi lifted his head. Yes, great one. I do not seek to steal, but to earn. Tell me your price, and I shall pay it. The court grew silent. The rain spirits stopped their dance. Even the thunder paused to listen. Niam smiled faintly, eyes twinkling like lightning behind clouds. You speak boldly, little spider. Very well. If you can meet my bride price, the stories shall be yours. But hear this, no creature, god or mortal, has ever succeeded. He stood, and his voice echoed through the heavens. Bring me these 4 things. Onini the python, who believes he is longer than any tree. Osibo the leopard, whose strength none can overcome. Moesha the fairy, who never allows herself to be seen. And a jar filled with wasp stings, fresh from the hive. Gasps spread through the court. Even the thunder spirits muttered, impossible. Niam leaned forward. If you bring me this, the stories of the sky will belong to you, and through you, to mankind. But fail, and you will never return to earth. Your web shall drift forever between heaven and nothingness. Anansi bowed low, his heart pounding. Then I shall not fail, great Niam. I will bring your gifts, and I will return with stories that will never die. As Anansi descended from the heavens, the clouds whispered among themselves. He will perish, said the thunder. He will triumph, said the wind. He will learn, murmured the rain. Below, the earth glowed like an ember waiting to catch fire. When he landed among the trees, the animals gathered once more, curious and amused. The elephant raised his trunk. Well, spider. Did the sky god laugh you back to earth? Anansi smiled, brushing the dust from his legs. He did not laugh, he challenged. And I, Anansi, have accepted. Before many moons pass, I shall bring him the python, the leopard, the fairy, and the wasp. Stings. Then the stories of the sky will belong to us all. The animals stared in silence. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, the parrot let out a cry. Let the spider try. For if he fails, we lose nothing. But if he wins, the world gains stories. And so, beneath the golden sun and whispering trees, Anansi began his journey, weaving plans within plans, dreams within dreams. He was small, yes. But he carried within him the courage of all who dream bigger than their size. That night, as the fireflies danced and the drums echoed through the village, Anansi sat before his web, gazing at the stars. He whispered softly to himself. Cunning is my weapon. Words are my tools. The sky may hold its secrets, but I, Anansi, will weave my own path to the heavens. And from the dark horizon, the faintest rumble of thunder replied, as if the sky god himself were listening. The first light of dawn spilled over the forest like golden honey, painting the treetops with fire. Birds sang from every branch, unaware that below them, a spider was plotting the most daring deeds ever woven by mortal hands. Anansi stretched his legs, his eyes gleaming. For impossible tasks, he said softly. But the sky god forgets, impossible is merely another word for clever waiting to happen. The wind rustled in agreement. He smiled. Then it begins. Anansi's first target was Onini the python, who lived deep within the swamp, coiled around the fallen Iroko tree like a lazy king. It was said that Onini could stretch longer than any creature in the jungle, and he was proud of it. He spent his days boasting. Even the sky god's rainbow is shorter than me. Anansi approached the swamp, humming a tune. Beside him walked his clever wife, also, the silent weaver of ideas. Husband, also said gently, how will you catch the python? He is strong, and his tongue is sharp. By his pride, Anansi replied, smiling. For pride is a trap one gladly walks into. He gathered some palm leaves, a long rope, and a piece of bark. Then he began to shout loudly, pretending to speak to his wife though Onini was listening nearby. Also, the villagers argue again. Some say Onini is longer than the Iroko tree, others say the Iroko tree is longer than Onini. Oh no! Also called back. If only there were a way to measure. Indeed. Anansi replied. If Onini were here, he could settle the matter. The python's head lifted from the swamp, his eyes glowing like whetstones. Who dares doubt my length? Hissed Onini, sliding closer. Oh, great one. Anansi bowed deeply. I try to defend your honor, but they mock me. They say you are smaller than this tree. Onini puffed up, his scales shimmering. Smaller. I will prove them wrong. Bring your rope. Anansi pretended to hesitate. But how shall we measure? If I tie you beside the tree, you may coil or bend, and they'll say it's unfair. Nonsense, boomed Onini. I will lie straight, straighter than the staff of Ogun himself. Tie me, so your foolish villagers may see. And so Anansi, hiding his grin, tied the rope around Onini's head, then around his middle, then his tail, quickly, tightly, neatly. When the last knot was pulled, he bowed. Oh, Onini the Great, you are truly longer than any tree, and far easier to carry. Onini thrashed, but it was too late. With Oso's help, Anansi rolled the bound python into a woven basket. One down, he whispered. 3 to go. He and Oso disappeared into the forest shadows before the swamp could whisper his secret. Next was Osibo the leopard, fierce hunter of the night, whose golden coat shimmered like fire under moonlight. He was strong, fast, and proud, and his hunger was endless. For 3 nights, Anansi watched from the treetops, studying Osibo's path. He noticed that the leopard always took the same trail near the banana grove, the perfect place for a trap. Oso asked, "Will you fight him?" "Fight?" Anansi laughed. "No, my dear. I will let his own strength pull him down." Anansi dug a deep pit along the path, covering it with branches and leaves. Then he sprinkled ripe bananas above it, Osibo's favorite snack. When the moon rose high, Osibo came strolling proudly through the grove, humming to himself. "Ah, tonight I shall eat well, perhaps a monkey, or maybe even the fool spider who whispers in the dark." He caught sight of the bananas and smiled. Oh, fortune smiles. Why hunt when dinner grows on trees? He stepped forward, and crash. The ground disappeared beneath him. He tumbled into the pit, roaring and clawing, but the walls were smooth. At dawn, Anansi strode by, humming the same tune. He looked down into the pit and gasped. Oh no! Osibo, mighty hunter, trapped like a rat. "Spider," growled Osibo. "Help me out of here before the sun rises, and I shall reward you." "Oh, I would gladly," Anansi said, pretending to think. "But I fear if I come close, your claws will find my neck." "I swear by my spots," Osibo roared. "I will not harm you." Anansi nodded slowly. "Very well. I will throw down a rope. You hold tight, and I'll pull you up." He spun a strong vine and lowered it. As soon as Osibo grabbed hold, Anansi tied the other end around a tree stump and waited. The leopard climbed halfway, then paused to rest. That was the moment Anansi had been waiting for. He released the rope from the stump, letting Osibo fall back into the pit. "You tricked me," Osibo roared. "Indeed," Anansi smiled. "For a hunter should know every trap has a maker." Anansi covered the pit, leaving the leopard trapped but unharmed. 2 down, he whispered, vanishing into the forest mist. Now came the hardest of all, Moesha, the invisible forest fairy. She was said to be as small as a child but wiser than 100 elders. Those who tried to catch her vanished forever, lost in illusions of the forest. Anansi sat beneath a kola tree, thinking deeply. He tapped his chin. The sky god chose her last for a reason. Strength and pride. I can trap, but how does one capture magic? Also smiled. Magic listens best to curiosity. Give her something she cannot resist. So they made a gum doll, shaped like a little girl, from soft sap and sticky resin. Anansi dressed it in fine cloth, placed a tiny bowl of yam beside it, and set it under the great baobab tree where Moesha was known to wander. Then he hid behind a bush and waited. As the moon rose, the forest shimmered faintly, and there she was. Moesha, glowing faintly blue, with hair like mist and eyes like morning dew. She saw the doll and gasped. Who are you, little one? Why do you sit alone in my forest? The doll said nothing. Can you not greet me? Moesha asked, frowning. Still, silence. The fairy grew annoyed. In my forest, when someone greets you, you must greet back. Say good evening. The doll remained quiet. Moesha stamped her foot and smacked the doll's cheek, but her hand stuck fast. Oh! What sorcery is this? She cried, struggling. She hit the doll again with her other hand, and that stuck too. Soon her legs were caught as well. Anansi stepped out, bowing. Forgive me, fair one, but it seems my doll has made a friend. You tricked me, Spider, she hissed. Indeed, said Anansi, smiling gently. But do not fret. Your story will soon live among the stars. He placed her carefully in a calabash, sealing it with soft cloth so she would not be harmed. 3 down, he whispered, and only 1 jar of wasp stings left. Anansi rubbed his chin. Even I cannot hold wasps without being stung. Also handed him a gourd and smiled knowingly. Then make them sting themselves. They went to a wasp nest high in the branches. Anansi called up sweetly. O mighty wasps, I bring news. There is a storm coming, a terrible storm that will drown your nest. The wasp buzzed angrily. A storm. Where can we hide? In this fine gourd, said Anansi. It is dry and safe. Quick, climb in before the rains come. The wasps, panicking, swarmed into the gourd. Anansi quickly sealed it with a cork and laughed. Oh, my stinging friends, you have caught yourselves. Days later, the animals of the forest gathered in awe. Anansi stood proudly before them, the python, the leopard, the fairy, and the jar of wasp stings laid neatly before him. You see, he said, smiling, the sky god asked for proof of wit. And wit, my friends, can weave anything. With his treasures secured, he climbed once again toward the heavens, his web glistening behind him. Thunder rumbled softly in the distance, as if the sky god himself was stirring. When Anansi reached the golden gates, the storm god bowed in silence. He entered the hall, where Niam sat upon his throne, his eyes glowing like twin suns. You return, little spider, said the sky god. Empty-handed, I presume. Anansi smiled and bowed low. No god nor man has ever achieved this. You have done the impossible, Anansi. The stories of the heavens are yours. Anansi bowed again, joy swelling in his tiny heart. But as he turned to leave, a sly grin flickered across his face. Perhaps, great one, he murmured, the sky holds no challenge I cannot weave. Niam's eyes narrowed, but he smiled faintly. Be careful, little spider. Pride is a thread that snaps easily. And far below, the clouds whispered again. He has won, but his web is not yet done. The sun was high above the clouds when Anansi, small yet victorious, returned to the palace of Niam, the sky god. The golden gates opened for him, and the thunder guards bowed their fiery heads. He had done what no spirit, man, or beast had ever achieved. He had captured Onini the python, Osibo the leopard, Moesha the fairy, and even a jar filled with the furious wasps. The air shimmered with awe as Anansi stepped forward, carrying his trophies with the pride of a conqueror. Niam sat upon his throne, a halo of lightning circling his crown. The sky caught filled with rain spirits, thunder drums, and cloud maidens watched in silence. "Come forward, Anansi," said the sky god, his voice deep as rolling thunder. "Show me what you have brought." Anansi bowed low, spreading his 8 legs like the rays of the morning sun. "Here, great Niam, is Onini the python, longer than any tree on earth. Here is Osibo the leopard, whose claws have never failed him. Here is Moesha the fairy, who no man can see. And here," he lifted the sealed gourd, a jar full of wasp stings, sharp as the tongue of fire. A murmur rose among the sky spirits. Never had such a feat been done. Niam leaned forward, inspecting the offerings. The python hissed softly, tied in sacred rope. The leopard growled in shame. The fairy glared at Anansi, her magic powerless before the sky god's gaze. Finally, Niam smiled, not with mockery, but respect. "You have done the impossible, Anansi. You have proven that wit is stronger than muscle, and courage greater than fear." He stood, raising his arms to the heavens. Lightning crackled. Clouds swirled. From above descended a golden calabash, glowing with runes older than time. "Take this," said Niam, "for within it lies the gift of stories, every tale the sky has ever whispered to the wind. From this day forward, all stories belong to you, Anansi, and through you, to mankind." The court erupted in thunderous applause. Even the spirits bowed as Anansi stepped forward and accepted the glowing calabash, his many eyes gleaming with triumph. That night, Niam hosted a feast unlike any seen before. The clouds rained honey instead of water, and drums of thunder rolled with joy. Anansi sat at the sky god's table, beside gods and spirits, basking in the glow of his victory. "Eat, little spider," said the god of the storm. "You have earned your place among the clever." "Drink, Anansi," said the goddess of the moon. "You have woven your name into eternity." Anansi smiled modestly, but inside, his chest swelled with pride. "I, Anansi, have done what no one else could. Even the gods praise my wit." Niam, watching him, spoke gently. "Remember, Anansi. Stories are power, but power without wisdom is a curse." Anansi bowed politely, but his mind was already drifting. The sky god's voice faded behind his thoughts. Power, power without wisdom. What is wisdom but another kind of cleverness? The next morning, the wind carried Anansi back down from the heavens. He descended on a silver thread that shimmered like the dawn, the golden calabash held tightly in his grasp. When he landed upon the earth, the animals gathered in awe. Even the proud elephant bent his trunk in respect. "Anansi," said the tortoise, "did you truly win the sky god's stories?" Anansi nodded, his voice calm but proud. "I did. And from this day, all tales belong to me. When you speak of lions or gods or clever spiders, you speak of Anansi stories." The forest erupted with cheers. Drums beat. The wind sang. Children ran to the fire that night to hear the first story told by mortal tongues. And Anansi told it, his voice rich and playful, his 8 legs swaying in rhythm. With the crackling fire, he spoke of heroes and fools, of gods and men, of how the moon learned to shine and how the river learned to dance. Each word spun into the air like thread, weaving the night into a tapestry of wonder. The people clapped, laughed, and wept. And thus, storytelling was born. Days turned into weeks. Everywhere Anansi went, people praised him. "The great Anansi," they said. "The bringer of stories. The wisest of all." Anansi smiled and accepted their praise. But soon, praise became hunger. He began to believe he was not just the keeper of stories, but their master. "If I brought the tales to mankind," he mused, "then I can decide who deserves them. Why should fools and children share what I earned?" So, one morning, before the sun rose, Anansi took the golden calabash and whispered, I shall hide the stories where no one can reach them. I alone will tell them when I please. He climbed the tallest tree, taller than the Iroko, higher than the clouds. He tied the calabash to his chest and began to climb, intending to hang it at the very top where only he could reach. But as he climbed, the calabash kept bumping against his belly, making the climb difficult. Each time he tried to grip the tree, the calabash slipped, swinging wildly. Below, his wife also watched quietly. "Husband," she called, "why do you tie the calabash to your front? Why not to your back, so it won't hinder you?" Anansi froze. For a moment, shame flushed through him, for he had not thought of that. He tied it to his back and climbed easily to the top. But as he reached the highest branch, realization struck him like lightning. "Even after all I've done," he whispered, "I, Anansi the wise, was outwitted by my wife's simple advice." His pride faltered, and in that moment of distraction, he slipped. The calabash broke loose, tumbling down, crashing through the branches. When it struck the earth, it shattered, and the stories scattered like fireflies, flying into the hearts of people, rivers, mountains, and stars. Everywhere, stories awoke in the laughter of children, the whisper of trees, the songs of mothers, and the dreams of old men. The world was filled with tales not owned by one, but shared by all. Thunder roared across the horizon. A great wind swept through the forest, and the voice of Niam echoed from the clouds. "Anansi, my little weaver, you have learned at last. Stories are not treasures to hoard, they are gifts to share." Anansi bowed deeply, tears glinting in his eyes. "Forgive me, great Niam. My pride was greater than my wisdom." "Forgiveness is given," said Niam. "But remember this, though the stories belong to all, your name shall forever live within them. Every tale told will carry your echo, the mark of Anansi." And as the thunder faded, the sun rose over a world alive with storytelling. That evening, as the people gathered around their fires, Anansi sat quietly among them. Children ran to him, eyes wide with wonder. "Tell us another, Anansi. Tell us about the leopard, the fairy, the gods." Anansi smiled softly. "Oh, little ones. The stories are no longer mine alone. They live in you now, in your laughter, in your dreams. When you tell them, they grow. When you share them, they live forever." He looked up at the stars, where he thought he saw Niam watching, smiling. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the voices of 1,000 tales. And Anansi, the clever spider who once sought to own all stories, finally understood his place in them, not as their master, but as their keeper. From that day on, whenever people tell tales by moonlight, they call them Anansi stories. And if you listen closely to the crackle of the fire or the whisper of the wind, you might just hear him chuckle, a tiny spider laughing softly among the stars. "A web may begin with one thread," he says, "but it is only beautiful when all are woven together." The world had changed since Anansi brought the sky god stories down to earth. Every village had a storyteller. Every night, fires glowed like little suns, and voices rose beneath the stars. Children gathered in circles, elders leaned on carved staffs, and tales of laughter, courage, and warning filled the air. People praised Anansi. They said his wisdom was greater than that of the kings. They said his cunning had outwitted even the gods. They said no creature alive could match his cleverness. And Anansi heard it all. At first, he only smiled. But soon, he began to believe every word. He strutted through the villages with pride in each of his 8 legs. "If it were not for me," he boasted, "you would all still sit in darkness. The sky god stories belong to me. I, Kwaku Anansi, gave you the gift of wisdom." The people cheered, but in their hearts, some whispered that perhaps the spider's web had grown too thick with vanity. One night, as Anansi sat on a high palm tree spinning his web beneath the moon, a thought crept into his mind, sharp and dangerous. "If I own all the stories of the world," he mused, why should others be allowed to tell them freely? Why should the farmer, the hunter, the weaver, or the king speak my words without my leave? He looked up at the sky. The moon glowed softly, the stars twinkled, and he felt the power of the stories within him. I shall keep them for myself, he said. Let the world beg for the tales of Anansi. I will build a great web in the heavens and trap all the light of night, so that none may tell a story without my voice. His plan grew bolder by the hour. He will steal the light of the sky god, the moon and the stars, and keep them hidden in his god, just as he had done with the sky god stories. The next evening, when the world slept, Anansi began to weave. He spun a web like no other, silver and glistening, stretching from the tallest tree up toward the clouds. He climbed and spun, humming to himself. Threads of pride, threads of power. The night shall bow before my tower. Stories are mine, their voice my crown. I'll catch the stars and pull them down. He worked for hours, his 8 legs moving faster than the eye could follow. His web shimmered across the sky, beautiful and terrible, a ladder of silk reaching toward the palace of Niam, the sky god. When dawn approached, Anansi reached the edge of the heavens once again. The clouds parted, and he saw Niam's light, the moon and stars, glowing in great bowls of crystal, guarded by spirits of wind and fire. He crept closer, silent as a shadow. Just a little closer, he whispered. A little tug, and the light of heaven will be mine. But the sky god had been watching. From his throne of storms, Niam smiled faintly. "Oh," he said softly, "so the little spider returns, not for wisdom, but for glory." He turned to the spirits around him. Let him weave his web. Let him climb high. For the proud must learn the weight of their own silk. Anansi reached the bowl of light and touched it. It pulsed warmly beneath his 4 legs, alive, pure, radiant. His heart raced with excitement. "Mine," he whispered. "The world will bow before Anansi." He began wrapping the bowl of moonlight in his web, pulling strand upon strand around it. But as he walked, the light grew heavier. His web began to stretch, trembling under the weight. Still, Anansi did not stop. "A spider who outsmarted the sky god can carry a little light," he laughed. But the web stretched thinner. A single strand snapped. Then another. And another. A terrible sound filled the air, like the groaning of 1,000 drums. Then came the voice of Niam. "Anansi, son of the earth, did I not warn you that cleverness without humility catches its own maker?" Anansi looked up in horror. His web shuddered. The threads glowed, then began to break one by one. "No, no, no, no," he cried, clinging to the bowl of light. "I am Anansi, the great trickster. I." But his words were drowned by the roar of the wind. The web snapped completely, and down he fell, tumbling through the clouds, wrapped in his own tangled silk. He fell for what seemed like eternity. The wind tore at his legs, his web knotted around him like a cocoon. When he finally struck the earth, he landed in a heap of dust and broken strands. His god of stories spilled open, and from it poured the tales of the world, old and new, sad and joyful, wise and foolish. They scattered like seeds across every village, every river, every mountain. The people looked up from their fires to see flashes of light across the sky, stories returning to the heart of all. The stars twinkled once more. The moon smiled down upon the humbled spider. Anansi groaned and looked at himself, covered in dust, his once sleek legs twisted in knots of web. He was silent for a long time. The next morning, a little child found Anansi lying near the roots of a great Iroko tree. The child lifted him gently. "Anansi," the child said, "why do you lie so still? You who brought us stories, what has happened?" Anansi looked into the child's bright eyes and whispered, "I flew too high, little one. I thought my web could hold the heavens." The child frowned. "But why would you trap the light?" Anansi sighed. because even those who weave wisdom sometimes forget to listen to it. I wanted to keep the stories for myself, but stories belong to everyone. The child smiled and set him upon a branch. Then tell me one, he said softly. And Anansi, though his web was torn, managed a little chuckle. Oh, he said, perhaps that is the only way to mend it. He began to tell the child a story, one about pride, and cleverness, and the fall of a spider who reached too high. High above, Niam watched the scene. He turned to his thunder spirits and said, let the spider's voice be heard in every home, so that his mistake may teach and his wit may entertain. His tales shall live forever, but let them be told by all, not owned by one. The wind carried his words to the earth, and since that day, whenever stories are told by firelight, you can hear the faint rustle of webs in the trees, a reminder that Anansi still listens, still laughs, and sometimes, still learns. That night, the people gathered around their fires once again. One old woman began to speak. Once upon a time, there was a spider named Anansi. And as her voice carried through the air, a small figure watched from the shadows, a spider spinning slowly, carefully, humbly. He no longer sought to own the stories. He only wished to keep them alive. The flames flickered, the children listened, and the stars twinkled above, free and bright. And if you listen closely, when a storyteller pauses between words, you may hear the faint whisper of Anansi's laughter in the night breeze, soft, wise, and eternal. For the web of stories, the wind murmurs, belongs not to one, but to all who listen.